Brian Lambert, so exciting to see you. Really, we go back many years with United Professional Sales Association. So I just want to acknowledge you have a heritage of helping sales and professionals.
Yeah, it's been a while. Hey, Martin, it's great to see you again. And I appreciate staying in touch all these years. And we've both been passionate about continuing to learn, continuing to evolve, whether it's social selling or doing things on new media. And now we're in the age of AI. So here we both are.
And you have a new little book. Could you flash that for a moment?
Oh,
Real
yeah.
thin, quick read.
Yeah, just the, the AI lead. It's about enterprise AI and bringing AI inside your organization. Organizations, there's a big difference between those that are doing it and those that want to do it. And the whole premise is no data, no AI. You have that's what AI is built on, is the data and the machine learning. So if your organization wants to deploy AI and get out of just doing chatbots with ChatGPT, that means deploying and having a data strategy and overcoming what I call data drag. And that's what the book is about.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about what you see in the industry, because I describe this as the next industrial revolution. And I have to tell you, 7 years ago, I wrote an article on LinkedIn on AI is the next is the next battle at a global level, and it's important that America get on their game. Back then, I found it, reshared it on LinkedIn, and this is something that I've been studying quite a while. And of course, the big turning point is when OpenAI made the world a free access to start playing with this and seeing how profound it is. And that was, to me, the watershed moment of, oh my gosh, this is really here. And I just want to say, I kind of have described it to people as, imagine if the printing press could be left in another room when it came out, and you'd go back a few weeks later and it's better.
Yeah, that's right. It definitely is the fossil fuel of the AI age is these generative models. And I like to tell people that there was a time before ChatGPT, so before generative AI, so BGI and AGI after generative AI, and you can really draw a line in the sand there to say, before generative AI, before ChatGPT, it was all in the space and in the land of machine learning and algorithms, and organizations were crunching data and people playing with artificial neural networks and deep learning. All those techie terms have been around for quite a while. But then what happened was we got into the generative piece, and the ability to ask a question and then get something back really is revolutionary. And the generative age and the ability to create outputs and create content is now upon us. And that's what made AI front and center to so many different people. And it's really exciting to see how many organizations are leaning into it, how many people are trying it, testing it in all aspects of their life. And there's a lot to learn in the space, and that's what I hope to do here over my next few years is really bridge the gap between the technical piece and the outcomes or the impact you can have with generative AI.
It's critical to get educated, because there's so much smoke and mirrors, and anything where it has great promise, there'll be a lot of people waving their hands. We've got the amazing next shiny thing. Please invest in it. And the more professionals can get educated, the more they can make the right decisions as a leader or an investment, all the way down to a lot of the work Justin and I do with small and micro businesses. He worked with a nonprofit, was about to invest about 30 grand in a AI consultant. And we went in and he basically taught them how to do it themselves, and for, less than a grand or two of consulting, they're now empowered to know what they did. So this is affecting everyone at all levels. And I was in getting my teeth cleaned, and I said, you still will be needed for a while before AI will take it over. But other than that, almost every aspect of the business is being affected.
Yeah, that's right. There is a way to recognize the value or the impact of AI at so many different levels, and I think we're really starting at a foundational level with tasks and the ability to offload some mundane tasks and generate tasks and do things, and whether it's schedule a call or check a calendar or create an email. But organizations that are kind of ahead of the game are leaning into more automation of workflows, and you hear about agents and things like that. But I think it's really important for people to understand what the concept is before getting into all the buzzword bingo. And then also realize that it's kind of like Amazon. When you have a shopping experience with them, those expectations that you might have as a consumer and how Amazon treats its employees or its consumers, or how it uses data and how it operates, and just the ability to see when a shipment's going to arrive. Those things that Amazon does with us as a consumer doesn't necessarily translate immediately over into how workplace happens and how the work is done. For example, an organization may still fly blind when shipping a large piece of equipment across the United States. It's not Amazon like yet, and so many organizations are further behind in their workplace than the consumers are that are, and the people and the workers that are working there. So I think we have to realize that and kind of take a deep breath here. That all of the LinkedIn videos and the YouTube and all the scrolling about, look at all the whiz bangs I can do with agents and AI, and look at this and all these terms. Those are great to do when you're sitting in your house on your computer by yourself with nobody else to collaborate with, or no other systems to integrate with, and no lawyers involved and all of these things. So it's great that you can do it by yourself, but the organization can't seem to figure out whether or not it wants in or not. And I think that we have to realize there's the private or the consumer side of AI and all of the buzz and all of the hype, and then there's the reality of how are executives, investors, leaders going to invest, and what are they going to expect from that investment. And I think there was a first, maybe for the first 2 years, this idea that, well, AI will never come in the workplace. But I got to tell you, the investors, the stockholders, the shareholders, the analysts are all asking every single company right now where their AI initiatives are, where they're piloting AI, and more importantly, if AI is into their products, how are you going to monetize AI? And so, mark my words, this is not like Bitcoin, where Bitcoin's not going to ever come inside of an organization. It's going to slow roll for 20 years. AI, it will come inside. It will be in your organization. You will, as an employee, have an AI bot showing up on meetings, and you will have AI as a teammate. What that looks like is still to be seen in some organizations, but for the more progressive companies out there, this is already happening, where bots and AI and teammates, generative AI teammates, are already showing up. So you can't really ignore that anymore. But I think it's important to just separate the two, the external versus the internal to the company view.
Well, let's start with agents because I think you brought up a very important point. Explain to people your version explanation of AI agents, because that's the latest buzzword that they're hearing everywhere related to AI. And it really is, when done well and with adult supervision, as I say, it can be very, very powerful, especially on what it offers in the future.
Yeah, so in a keeping it simple view, an agent is some sort of generative AI that can think a little bit, but more importantly, it can control other software tools. That's really what the agent aspect is the ability to do something with another software, if you will. So there's a whole path there under the agent view that eventually leads to people saying that your operating system will get replaced by agents that do tasks for you, whether it's create an email or write a document. But I think in that agent view, the forward looking piece we can definitely explore. I also think it's important to understand the foundational piece that generative AI really is trained on the entire internet. There's this thing called a platform model that people have to understand. There's OpenAI, there's Anthropic, there's Gemini. These are platform large language models. And you may have heard of the Chinese version of Deepseek that came out this week. Those are platform models that I view as they're pretty much utilities right now.
Mhm.
They're power sources you can plug into. Yeah, but the key here that most companies are wrestling with is how do they not that they, one, they have to decide if they're going to use a platform model and whatever it is, and what are they going to plug into. And we can talk about how that all works and the technology of it, but it's like plugging in a blender into the outlet or a washing machine into the outlet. You have all of these appliances, all of these apps that can plug into these large language models. And when you do that, there's a whole bunch of different aspects of AI that are at play. And one of those is, how do you keep your data private? How do you not just ship it over? What is training the LLM versus tailoring it inside of organization? Right. And that's the foundation that leads to, okay, now we have an agent that can do things. But I think the key that most people have to realize is there's a difference between the external view of the consumer view of AI, which is in Netflix and Hulu, and how you interact, and you can set appointments externally. Then internally to your company, companies are trying to figure out, are we going to bring a large language model inside of our organization? What is that enterprise agreement? What model, what platform model are we going to choose? Is it Copilot? Is it OpenAI? Is it Anthropic? Is it this one Deepseek, which we can talk about? And then once we have that platform model, that's a power source that does a lot for us. And most people don't understand what it can do. It can do a lot more than just a chatbot. Let me put it that way. It's beyond just chatbot. But once you have that, then you can start saying, well, what can we control? What kind of inputs do we need? What is this adult supervision that you're bringing up? The human, they call it, also human in the loop is another kind of buzzwordy thing. And how do we interact with that large language model that we choose? And that's a big, I think there's a big knowledge gap on just what is happening in this space. And though we can chat with ChatGPT and a chatbot, that is a simple give and get, if you will, a simple task. Organizations are going to go through a process of automating workflows, automating processes, and letting AI have some boundaries to operate within. So it can do it will eventually do shipping. It will eventually do invoicing. It will eventually do receiving. It will chase people who need to be collected upon, and you can pick their voice and all that. And now we're in the space of an agent, right? An agent that can operate within that parameter and call other tools and activate those other tools. And those things are happening right now. But again, back to the gap and the reality check here. I read an article last week, Martin, that said a lot of logistics and manufacturing companies, I think 65%, still don't have digital workflows.
Mhm.
So when you don't have a digital workflow, again, and that's an end-to-end process. So if you have not digitalized an end-to-end process, you cannot automate that process, right? So let's pretend making coffee is a process. If that's a manual process where some human has to push buttons to make that coffee, to go, hey, let's AIify that. You're not going to be able to do that until it's at least automated. There's some sort of automation where the coffee can happen. And you may have seen that at some coffee places or even at McDonald's with drinks where it can dispense once you hit a button, and all that automation from the ice to everything else can happen. But that's where the agents play, is in this end to end, this idea of there's not only a task that needs to be done, and an output that needs to be generated, but some sort of workflow, some sort of beginning and end process, and that I can call other beginning and end processes. And when you look at very heavy technical manufacturing organizations that have not even digitalized their processes, we've got a long way to go in realizing the value of these AI tools, these AI workflows, these AI agents, and up at the top, these AI, what I would consider AI strategies, which are, how do we AIify, if you will, the entire human resource department, and from recruiting to retention, like how would you do that? Those things are pretty aspirational right now.
Yeah. I want to talk about that digitizing, analyzing. You gave a good beginning metaphor. We want to automate the coffee. Well, someone has to carry the water over, someone has to make it. We might need to bring in some new technology before we do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important part is that's the beginning level of analysis in a company is let's see what processes and a lot of companies have a book of the process and then a reality of the process and they may not even match. And you know, and
Yeah.
I know
And
I
then you don't
remember
know
my
where the
years in
process.
IBM. I go, it says we're doing it this way, but that doesn't I can walk across the hall and show you we're doing nothing like it.
That's right. And then not only is that process not what we think, but the data, the bits and bytes and data, the assets are not nowhere to be found. We don't even know where they are half the time or where they're stored. So there is an underlying data problem that will slow down the adoption. And I think of it and I write this in the book. Actually, it's pretty early on in chapter 3 and 4 of the book that I wrote that just came out. It's the idea that you have two axes. On the horizontal axes, you have this idea of digital mastery and how is the organization? This is an organizational component. How is the organization going digital, if you will?
Mhm.
And organizations are on a very, very broad continuum of that. But if they don't even have an understanding of what it means to go digital, they're not going to be able to have mastery of the digital domain. Like,
Mhm.
and digital is simply it's ones and zeros. It's not analog paper, right? We're
Mhm.
talking ones and zeros of everything. Everything's in a computer, communication networks, all that software. Everything's digital native, et cetera, et cetera. And so then on the vertical axis, you have the human component. So if the horizontal axis is the organizational component and there's a maturity there, then you have the individual, the human component on the vertical axis, and you have a kind of a data mastery component here. There are many people that, and, myself included for many years, who believe that the domain of data and technology was for the data people and the technologists. It's not for me. I'm a sales guy. I'm a
Mhm.
marketing guy. I don't do that stuff. Well, in the digital age, in the AI age, you've got to have an understanding of data and have some comfort with it. And you have to be more than just, hey, we have data laying around. You actually have to know where the data is and be able to interpret it, not just for your job and your role, but you're going to start seeing in the AI age that many times you have to get outside of your silo and to get beyond just your own spreadsheet to other people's spreadsheets. And that kind of gets people really anxious because they had a hard time. They've worked 20 years on the one spreadsheet that they're comfortable with. So that idea of being data, aware, data driven, data governed, and eventually data led, that maps to the maturity of the organization. So you have digital maturity and data mastery, and we're very, very basic in most companies. Very basic. It's like we're in not even high school of digital acumen and data mastery. So that means that we have a fertile ground here to improve, but we also have to realize as humans that our value is not in those things. We have to stretch and push because you know what? AI is very comfortable in the data level and the mundane process where unfortunately most workers are working today in the data spreadsheet view and in the mundane process. That area is ripe for automation and ripe for outsourcing, and you're seeing that all over tech and in many industries. So, how are humans going to stretch and push themselves if agents are competing for their role? And agents can work 24/7, and agents have no feelings, right? They don't get tired, and they don't care how you treat them, and they don't need work-life balance. I mean, this is a real human element here that requires a cognitive, a mental stretch to move into a domain of a different role than just doing things to being somebody who synthesizes and creates and becomes innovative across many different domains. And you're seeing that in many different instances. And that's why we're having so much upheaval in the space right now. So there's a lot going on with that, and agents are a big piece of it. And if and you're people in roles and jobs are going to compete with agents, And it's really important for you to understand what an agent does and how it works. But most people don't even know what an LLM is right now. All right.
Right.
So I think that's an education piece. I just had I have this debate all the time when I talk about the book, and it's, well, AI is just a tool. AI is really not for me. AI is going to, kill us all and take us all. I'm staying away from it. And I tell people, that when the automobile came out and the automobile was driving around in those western towns, there were people on horses that said, hey, that automobile is really bad and really terrible and noisy, and I'm never going to get in that car, and that automobile is going to kill us all and kill our horses, and I'm staying on my horse. And if you want to be one of those people that stays on your horse, that's fine. But through the dawn of history and time, there have been pivotal moments, probably when fire came out, probably when you had to move from, hunting and gathering and eating berries to eating meat. That was probably scary to kill a tiger. There were people who said that's dangerous and that's never going to go anywhere. I'm happy with my berries and my nuts, right? So and so same thing with a washing machine. I'm out on the prairie. I like my river, and I'm just going to wash my clothes in the river. This washing machine and all this electricity stuff is for it's madness. Well, here we are. So you can dig your heels in as long as you want to. And I have my own story. We're older a little bit, Martin. When the
Yeah.
BlackBerry was the
Oh,
thing, and the
yeah.
iPhone came along, I held out. I've held out for 4 years because I liked my keyboard,
Yeah.
right?
No,
I
I
liked
actually I upgraded to the Storm they had that should have been called Wreck at Sea because they were not able to compete
So
with
I
it.
kept my keyboard, and I finally got an iPhone. So
So
everybody's on their own journey, but
there's several things I want to go deeper on this. One topic is the fact that a lot of businesses don't realize how bad their data is. They're trying to go, here, I'll give you the data, just analyze it and tell me what it's doing. And then that's one of them. And the other is the fact that with all new technology, good and bad's going to happen. I mean, I think somebody said the first road and automobile, they robbed a bank. The first internet, we don't want to talk about what type of pictures they were sharing back and forth on it.
yeah,
There's no moments in history with technology was not abused at the same time doing good. I'm sure there were, when the printing press came out, there was probably naughty bits going out in words
right.
or something at the same time or something. So this is the key to understand. And Brian, you and I have a passion for the human condition along with technology. And I think we need to have compassion that this is going to be a painful time for a lot of us because when the printing press took hold, there were a lot of scribes that were not comfortable. and
Yeah, and
and
I've
really understand the fear is like a primal protective mechanism. Just don't let it run you.
Yeah, and definitely it's fight or flight, and it's a human aspect, and that's where I took the long view on this. I said, so I started writing my book 2 years before ChatGPT came out, and then really the premise was that your data is like oil, but it's like air. Nobody owns it. Nobody cares about it until you don't have it. And for you to be really customer centric and build an empathetic organization, you really need to understand your data. So I was going on this data journey, and then a Chat GPT came out, and it became very clear to me that if you don't have data, you don't have AI. And so when you train the whole entire internet into Chat GPT, and everybody does. So the whole entire internet's in all of these platform models. Let's pretend there are 10 platform models. They all have the same public information. They're all going to start sounding alike, lowest common denominator at some point, which then leads to companies to compete are going to have to rely on their differentiation. Well, where is that differentiation? It's inside the company. What's inside the company that makes it different? Yes, it's the people, absolutely, but it's actually the outputs and the data and the assets that are created. And that's what you need to, think about from an AI perspective. Well, that's a new economy where you move beyond the intangible into the ability to create outputs and generate based on intellectual property, so to speak. That's a new economy. And so much of our work life has been around, look, the human brain is the most important thing. My brain power is what you're paying for. You should be lucky to have me. Well, you know what? I have not found a human that can outrun and outbeat and outthink and outlogic and outcompute an AI. So your brain power from a task perspective will get crushed by AI. I mean, it can beat medical tests. It's the smartest thing in the room. I mean, let's just be real, right? Now, where does our uniqueness as being a human? This is where the disruption comes in, and I do have a point to this. And the disruption the disruption is that it's in our creativity, it's in our synthesis, it's in our empathy, it's in our ability to connect dots, it's in our ability to use these tools for greater good, things like that. Well, to your point about societal shift, the farmers that went into the factories, if you just want to play with that one, that took 200 or 300 years. That took 2 or 3 generations to move from agrarian to industrial age. We're seeing all of this compression from the industrial age into the digital age in less than one generation. You and I we grew up in the 8-track, and we had cassette, and we had tape. Now we're into the age of AI. Look at that, what's happened in less than 100 years. So we are in a super time compressed view. But if you look at, let's compare the two, agrarian to industrial, a lot of upheaval, a lot of societal unrest. The laws didn't keep up with the industrial age. You had people at the top that were maximizing their money and not giving it to the poor. You had all of these things. You had strife, you had angst, you had hunger, you had wars, you had all this stuff going on. Well, guess what's happening now? Everything's compressed in, and there's it's right in your face. It's now there's the haves and the have-nots around the digital space. There's the people at the top that are going to start cutting jobs because they don't need your humanness. It's going to feel like, and you know what that is it's the tasks that you've grown up with and become an expert at. It doesn't mean they don't want your humanness. They just don't want your tasks. They just don't want those mundane data basic tasks that you've built your whole career on anymore. And that sucks. That sucks to hear. And I went through that. It was very painful. It's like crawl up in the fetal position and watch, animated cartoons. What am I doing with my life? It's a huge tangled mess of emotion and am I worthless? Where's my value? And then at some point I had to decide, what am I going to do about this? Am I going to fight it or turn it on myself and say, look, I'm totally useless now? Or am I going to lean into it and try to figure out how to leverage it for the greater good? And that's a big journey that took me, and that's where the book came from. 600 pages of trying to figure out, what is this AI thing? And this is really 4 years of a lot of pushing myself to understand the data and the technology and the ability to create value from data and to create value from AI. And I've come to the realization that it's an opportunistic time, that for every job that gets taken away by AI, others will be created. I'm seeing it already. There are new jobs being created. And so we will adapt. We'll put people on Mars, and we'll have new jobs, and we'll have things like prompt engineering that nobody heard of 2 years ago. There is a whole bunch of jobs open right now. The question will become, do people want to learn that stuff? And they have a choice to make. Either hold on to your horse or get in the automobile. Stay on the farm or get in the factory, right? These are choices that each individual needs to make. And I want to help people, when they do want to take action, help them through that process.
We align with that passion, and that's all the way back to the social selling work we did, which we'll have to do another show in the history of it as well, because it's a great one.
Yeah.
And that's that. I think something you and I are passionate about is when I can teach people how to break it down to start with something. And so they go, I know it's fire. You don't put your hand fully in it. You get near it first and start to notice. And then you can use things called pans that you hover, but don't hold the pan. You need something, when we can do that with people and empower them, and they go, okay, I shouldn't go in reckless, but then I should not go in at all. Because I think you would agree, this isn't something you should go in with 100% trust or blindly or recklessly.
Right. And I appreciate that comment, and I totally agree. I call it having command. Staying in control, being a leader, not getting into the fetal position and playing victim and woe is meing this, to say, look, okay, what if AI is the thing that cures cancer?
Hmm.
What if AI is the thing that frees up hours in the day so I can enjoy my life? There is some upside here to exploring this. We just have different roles now, and what I think is really really important, and I could spend hours explaining my own journey through this process, which was very painful
Hmm.
and very emotional and it was very much a struggle. It's the idea that what you got you here is not going to get you there. This Marshall Goldsmith quote, that what got you here is an expert in your job, and your expert in your job has to do with an org chart position, and the org chart position that you've built very specialized expertise, and that specialized expertise has to do with a lot of tasks and getting stuff done. Most people are in that space where they're really, even if they're making $300,000 a year, there's still a bit of a cog in the machine of a company. Yeah, they might be making a lot of money, but their expertise is in one domain, very boxed in, and they built the whole career on it. How would you use all those skills and all of that knowledge in a completely different way? We're not talking about it's useless. We're talking about using it in a different way. That's the opportunity. That's the exciting part. But if you don't have command of your mindset, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a vision, if you don't know how to, what I call, untangle yourself in the digital age so that you learn by doing and act, you're going to get stuck. And that's stuck feeling sucks. I say, tell people, being stuck sucks. If you feel like it sucks, you're stuck. You have to learn how to untangle and take action. If you don't know where you're going, let's talk. There's ways in which you can move forward here. But isolating in this post-COVID world, hunkering down inside your office, watching doom scrolling on Twitter and talking about all this bad stuff that's going to happen, and that is not how you're going to get ahead. Um,
I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that because I've known you long enough where you were a real expert in sales. And for people who don't know, Brian, you took on the ambitious goal of making sales a unique profession. And I was part of that work. I still have the book, what was the name
oh,
of it?
the compendium.
Yeah, compendium of sales. No, but and modeling
Yeah,
after project managers. I became certified as a educator with you, and I'm
right.
proud of that work. But that was a whole different model. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that struggle you went through because you were extremely excellent in that. I mean, you were lots of research, lots of data, and so forth in that early stage, and now it's like completely flipped. So please share a little bit of your journey struggle with it because I think that will add a lot. Your courage in moving through it will inspire other executives because you were not the bottom of the totem pole. You were working with the top of top in the world.
Yeah, I did, and I still do. I work a lot with companies that are trying to grow, executives. I was a top performing salesperson. I've been to 30 different countries and trained thousands of people. And yeah, I'm big on the idea that customers are critical to the lifeblood of an organization, and salespeople are the ones that have the conversations with these people. That actually is what led me to here, because I believe strongly that customer empathy, understanding prospects, understanding the market, understanding what's happening in the world of a buyer, whether they're a prospect, a customer, a lead, whatever you want to call them, their world is way more important than our world as salespeople. And when you think about all of the things that they have to deal with right now, that's where I'm heading with this AI stuff. Is they will have to change how they work. Everything I'm telling you or I've had to go through, our customers will have to as well. They're going to have to figure all this stuff out. Well, who is that? Oftentimes that first contact to help people change it, it's salespeople that have gone out and to explained how a washing machine works out on the prairie, or who explained how an automobile works, or explained this funny thing called the cloud that is up in a cloud, and we're going to sell an invisible cloud, and the cloud's going to be really important. Everybody has like, yeah, right, whatever. And I think in the world of SaaS products, I got really disgruntled from the idea that all you have to do is demo somebody and show them the product, and buyers already have their mind made up. And once you show them the demo, they'll just part with their money, and it sells itself. And I think we've over engineered that motion so that we expect all prospects and buyers to have answers, and we expect them to all be 89 to 95% down their decision making process before a salesperson shows up. But in the age of AI, nobody knows the answer, and there's so much to figure out. So it's kind of to me, it's going to be the golden age of selling again. And that means that salespeople have to become trusted advisors with people who are trying to figure things out. And for the most part, sales training and sales management and sales product led growth sales and product management is all about what I would consider an inside out motion, an inside out from the company out to the buyer. And all you have to do is demo, and that buyer will part with their money. AI is, I like to tell people, it's just like your customer. It doesn't care about your product, and it doesn't care about your org chart. So AI and your customers are very much alike in that the silos don't matter, and salespeople need to be freed up to have these conversations to help buyers figure things out when they don't even know what they're asking. So that's why I put the pedal to the metal on AI, because there I know that AI will come inside of a company. I know that salespeople are going to have to explain how to implement AI. I know that McKinsey and Accenture and all these companies at the tippy top are going to spend trillions of dollars figuring it out, and then everybody else is going to have to figure it out. And that's the wild west. And salespeople are the best prepared to do that if they understand what they're selling, which is why I wrote the book, because what we're selling is the value of data, really. There's an economic value of harnessing internal data with AI, and that's what you're selling. And what does that yield? It yields more empathy for buyers, more empathy for your organization. And I believe, and I talk about this in the book, that empathy and personalization are going to be the thing that really salespeople sell and makes companies rich, and more valuable, is the ability to relate and not just have everything run by a computer. And this is human connection. That's why I like live shows like this,
Mm-hmm.
or live podcasts. Are people want to see the humans?
We've got to get better at embracing what humans are best at. But that means some skill development. Some people aren't comfortable looking at a camera. Some people aren't comfortable interacting in person. Some people aren't comfortable speaking. Some people aren't comfortable at deeper thinking. They want to just get a quick answer. And being with the confusion of not knowing, the inquiry where it's uncomfortable, those are the skills they need to build, or handling conflicts. These are, to me, should be absolute top priority skills. And I was thinking schools because my own university, I'm eager to support them on the alumni council. We need to get maybe traditional problem solving, conflict resolution, get the students. Let's maximize those human skills that many of us have gotten complacent in developing and keeping sharp.
Yeah, that's spot on. On one hand, we say, well, AI and computers, it will never replace human creativity and human empathy and the ability to relate. And I'm like, well, I don't know about you guys, but I can relate better with my AI bot than most humans. I enjoy working with my 6 AI bots I have. I find it very productive and fun. But when I try to work with humans, it's terrible. I got to tell you, and I'm probably the jerk most people don't like, because I ask very provoking questions and people don't like it. And I'm often singled out as the one that's, trying to figure things out or slow everybody down. And that's been an issue for the last couple of years for me. And I think this idea of, look, let's look at the dark ages coming into the Renaissance period. Let's look at these societal shifts again. Why did the Renaissance happen in Italy? Well, it's at the crossroads of so many different perspectives and cultures. And in today's world, we have an opportunity with AI to understand so many different perspectives. If you don't like the way the election goes, crack open the voice version of ChatGPT and have a debate about why people are voting for the other candidate. Have a debate about what's the best football team. Have a debate about the difference between AI and humans. Have a debate with it. And you'll find that it has a very solid logic structure. Well, those logic structures, the idea of the Socratic method in asking questions, the idea of logic, the idea of philosophy, these were things that underpinned the Renaissance age. And that the reason why people could synthesize so many different perspectives is because they had the logic to do that. The scientific method, things like that. And we've lost a lot of that. We've outsourced our thinking into we're just doing stuff and we're so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And then are you productive? It's not about what if it was not about being busy? What if it was about being productive? And then who gets to determine what good is? Is it you because you were so busy? Is that what good is? It's really it really messes with your mind. But to an AI, if your definition of being busy equals that's me being productive, I'm so busy, AI will kick your butt because it never goes to sleep. It will get all it's got a whole data center in Texas that's way busier than you are. Like it's way more. Then you might as well just say it's way more productive. And you know what? AI is way more productive. And if that's your definition of the ability to do things. And so if that's your value is I get stuff done, I'm so busy. Oh my gosh, I sent this email. I go to meetings. I do these tasks. I write these emails. I'm so stressed. All that stuff AI can do. And it doesn't get stressed out and it doesn't get mad. And so now what? Now what are you going to do? And then to
Mhm.
me, it's like lean into the Renaissance age that AI is bringing. Synthesize, find new problems. What are the new jobs? Have you asked yourself that? What if there was a job called AI ethicist that kept the guardrails on AI? Why don't you learn about that? Learn how to be an AI ethicist. Maybe you need to pick up some legal aspects of that. Helps you out. You know what you can do? You can ask ChatGPT or an AI bot what you need to learn, and you can actually learn it right there on the fly. What about prompt engineering? Did you understand how LLMs work and that the ability to ask prompts is a critical thing? Did you know that there are people who are writing 100-page prompts, not just one question in the window? They're actually prompting with 100 pages of prompts to get an answer back that's very specific. There's a whole field around prompt engineering. There's a whole field around synthetic data, fake data. That's good data, fake data, but your organization has crappy data and you have holes in your data. Ask AI to fix it and create synthetic data. And then there's going to be a whole thing around testing. Then there's a whole thing around APIs. There's so many new fields and so many new jobs that most people have no idea about. And so the final point I'll say on this new Renaissance age that AI will bring, I had a person in my workshop. I've been doing AI strategy workshops. I had somebody whose very first year in their career, they graduated from a reputable school in North Carolina that everybody knows as a coder with a computer science degree, got hired into a financial services company that crunches a lot of 10K and a lot of financial information, not a bank, but like a hedge fund, if you will. And he's building AI stuff and he's building basically bots. And I said, hey, did you learn any of this that you're using right now? 365 days later, after you graduated with a computer science degree, are you using any of it right now? And he said, no, I'm not using any of it. I said,
I
no, come on, you have to be using some of it. He goes, okay, fine, Python. I but they didn't teach me Python that much. I did extra Python in college. I only had one Python class, but I'll give it credit. In my 4 years of college from this reputable school, I learned Python. I said, well, how much of your job is Python? And he's like, I don't know, 5%. So I'm saying 95% of what you do as a coder working on AI things you didn't even learn in college, and you are 20 something and you just graduated from a top tier school a year ago. Yes. So if that isn't a wake up call, I don't know what is, right? It's a level playing field
Yep.
to me. There, everybody started at the same starting line, unless you're Sam Altman and you have $65 trillion that you spent on this, or whatever that number is. But everybody else, all the regulars like you and me, Martin, we all have the same starting line on this. So while it might appear that I have some sort of genius that nobody else has, I'm actually just further ahead, and I
Mhm.
gutted it out, and I treated it like a 4-year journey to slog it out so other people wouldn't have to. I'm just
Mhm.
further ahead, and I hope people pass me,
Mhm.
like this young first year career. So that's my big takeaway, or my big call to action for people, is to go figure out where the new jobs are and where the new roles are and what you're passionate about, lean into your strengths, and then get some renaissance going. Have the logic, creativity, debate with people, engage, action, listen, practice your debating and empathy problem solving skills, and learn how to work with AI. Not to make yourself the smartest in the room, because you're never going to be the smartest in the room anymore. AI will always be the smartest in the room, but you learn to work with it so that you can solve better problems. These are going to be more difficult to solve over time.
Yeah, that's why we came up with an 8-week program in AI designed in modules that can plug into a school, because we've designed it knowing that while we teach that class, we're going to have to rebuild the class. So if I then built a 2-year quote certificate in AI, I know by the time I got that approved by everybody, it would be almost useless. And so
Yeah.
this
What
is
are the
why,
what are kind of the things, the topics that you teach in there?
we go through the fundamentals of understanding, like what really is a large language model, what is temperature hallucination, understanding that because it gives us that nice human interface, there's a byproduct of it's going to generate the next most probable thing. What does that really mean? And then understanding how, in many ways, our first AI is sort of like a person giving you a snap quick answer, but not a deep thought. And that's where chain of thought comes in. What is that? Understanding of chain of work, chain of thought, these things. In our training, we start with prompts that build the skills of understanding, thinking about creating prompts, not just a bunch of cool recipes you throw in. And that's where I'm eager for you to network with my stepson. He's a senior data scientist, and I hired him, worked with him. I said, build prompts that teach the course independent of the course. Well, that's worth the whole course. So each prompt builds on another. And then, things like having a prompt create a prompt. Many people, you and I have played with that, but many don't know, wait, I could get it to teach me something, or what does that look like? These are the beginning skills, because when I built the course, I wanted to ask, okay, what is the anatomy and physiology that someone needs today that will last for a while to build on, and make sure that's covered so they can build on this? Because there's so many new jargons and terms. If you don't have something to stand on, then it's hard to build on. We went through the whole history of AI. I did it with my stepson, and he was going, that's not right. This was the first winner. This is what that means. Well, that's included in it, because it's just like you and I in sales. If you know a little bit, remember in sales, of the history of how it built, then you can build on it. Well, this is a whole nother paradigm with that. And these are just a few of the things that are included in it. And it's exciting because you got to get your hands on it. You got to do an exercise. And I think our homework assignments are like 2 courses. We have the concepts and the experience. And then the second thing I want to build out, and we'll talk about, that we're doing, is building out some of the human skills. We got to get some of those. We're working on a critical thinking training, that I did 1 years ago, but I'm pulling it out because what does that mean to not know? Are you letting yourself not know? Because if you're just going for a snap answer, look, you're easier to replace than a Homo sapien that can be confused for a while and really get a unique gestalt experience. What are the human skills that will be harder to replicate for a while? And how do we sharpen those?
Yeah, it's a great point. It's this idea, like you said, of being uncomfortable and being okay with that. to be in that ambiguous, fuzzy, I don't know period, and to just say, you know what, I'm okay with that. And then to say, okay, well, how would I figure that out? And AI is really good at giving people inputs. And that I learned that early on, maybe in the first week. I kept asking it for outputs. And I was pissed because I realized within the first week of playing with ChatGPT that my expertise has now been democratized, and a lot of people are going to be as have as much ability as I did. Where I was unique before in my ability to handle deep work and create blogs and create books, anybody can do that now. And so then I was pissed. I'm like, well, great. Now I'm invaluable. I'm not different anymore. Everybody's gonna, rising tide lifts all boats. Yeah, great. Now, what am I gonna do? And I said, well, and I don't know how I came to this. It just was probably because I learned how to a long time ago to be uncomfortable and to think about this and take a deep breath and to be in this fuzzy, ambiguous state. And I just came up with this idea that was, well, what if AI was an input instead of if I just leaned on it for outputs? What if I could go to AI as an input into me? And then what would that do for me? And I started asking it to say, well, you're a 12-year-old that's trying to do these things. Give me that input. Or how would you go about learning something? Give me an input on how I need to learn that. And I started giving more and more prompts that actually gave me more and more precise inputs. And when I realized that I could get better inputs, then I could create better outputs.
Give
And
a
I
little
think so
example
many
because
people,
I know what that means, but people may not know, the input and output. Give an example what just an output and input in. It's such an important point you're making.
yeah, I mean, hey, I need an email to write to Martin Brossman. Boom, boom, and I hit send. Um, sure, the task is done and I can move on. But what if it's totally devoid of anything that Martin Brossman thinks valuable? Perhaps I should ask AI to think about giving me inputs. So here's his LinkedIn profile. Give me an input about perhaps give me your perspective. It doesn't have to be right, AI, but give me your perspective. What do you think really drives him based on his LinkedIn profile? Based on his age, what do you think he might be caring about? Based on what he's saying and what he's blogging and posting about, what are the top three things that seem to really get his goat, right? Like, give me those inputs. Um, and I could go on,
No,
right? Like,
that's excellent. That's why I knew that was a perfect for someone to understand is that's it. And you could also say, ask me 10 questions about what I know about him,
yeah,
And
yeah,
then,
or based,
and it'll come up with where did you first meet him? I didn't think that'd be relevant. That's good. I'm
yeah,
teaching a digital marketing class. I've completely revived it for small business, and they're blown away because I've got a series of prompts where it interacts with them for them to then discover what their unique offering is.
that's
And
right.
then I say, now you're not done. You can't just throw it out there. Then organically live with that and tweak it. And a person who does DJing was so excited to share. And I said, okay, I would change these words. Now you've got it.
That's right.
And that's the thing that you have to develop that muscle. And I like in studying people who seem to be effective with AI as an employee is it's almost like you got an assistant over here that hasn't had all your experience, but has been exposed to all the world of knowledge. So it's
That's
not
right.
yours, but all the world of knowledge. And
Yeah,
learn to interact with them. And I think that's the thing you're bringing up is we aren't accustomed to having an interactive conversation with a coffee mug. We're not accustomed to it. And I do have to
right.
show you this is one of the mugs my stepson generated. Look at it's a kitten bunny. I'll put the link below, available on Amazon. So, people are trying to go, where can I get the bunny, not the pictures? But the key of it is this is a new way of living. I think that you've come up that we have not done that before. We got output from our little early computers, you and I probably, you might have even had a Timex Sinclair. I don't know if you know it, but
Commodore
you put in
64.
and it gave you, or it rolled dice and did something. But we
Yeah.
didn't have something where we had the conversation kind of like the Star Trek computers, where it could be more. Well, that's really starting to happen. Or you can say, I took one person and said, okay, do you know how to teach piano? Yes. Okay, let's try it. I took ChatGPT and said, tell me where I should start if I know nothing about piano. And it goes something like, find middle C, it's approximately here. And their eyes got big because they go, that's actually not a bad starting place.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're a piano teacher and they're going, could this replace my job? Yeah, I could probably then give me a lesson, once a day on how to teach them, and then I will ask you when I get stuck.
Yeah, that's the future of education. That's the future of marketing. That's the future of sales. And I think what people can lean into is, what if instead of a marketing role or a training role, our job was to kind of fix other people or train other people? What if our job was to give really structured inputs to an artificial intelligence that help them do their job better in how it interacts with somebody curious? And so instead of giving it the whole internet, what if you could give it the Martin Brossman brain and how Martin thinks, and then also everybody else's in the organization, so that it gives better advice in the moment. And it's not necessarily quote unquote wrong in what it gives, but also it's also creating a lot more value. And because it has those inputs, it's digested. And I think a lot of functions will start shifting to feed the model internally. That model then will interact with platform models and be way better at serving customers and serving us. And so there's a lot around that. But there's a what if there. And that's, it was really scary when I wrote my book, because I said it before I sent it to the publisher. I said, okay, I have my big book here. It's time for the moment of truth. I'm going to put in the chat. I'm going to put in AI, this chapter by chapter, and I'm going to have it rip it to shreds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, and this is a long time ago. So I'm like, well, I'm going to put all my intellectual property into OpenAI, and it's going to steal all my secrets in the book. And then I'm thinking, well, is there a word in here or a concept in here that is truly unique to mankind? No. The issue is that I've organized it and I made it into a journey that people can digest. That's a valuable human trait, right? So there's no single word in here that's different. However, it's the experience of the book that is unique, right? So the experience that's created. So then I started saying, okay, well, if these words are not unique, then what if it tells me my book is crap?
Mm-hmm.
This is I can't upload this because I might not like what it tells me. Right. This is what's going on in my brain. First,
Yeah.
it's going to steal all
Oh,
my
that's great.
secrets. Then it's going to tell me I'm an idiot. Then it's going to tell me I'm wrong. And I'm gonna, I'm just not gonna publish it. So, but I said, you know what? I'm gonna fight through that feeling. That's a human response. That's a tangle. I'm gonna get untangled. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give it the first chapter, and the prompt was like something. Here's the first chapter of a book I wrote. Give me areas to improve and areas that are great. And you know what? It did a phenomenal job. And and then I said, holy cow. And then I said, I said, well, how am I going to use this? What am I going to do? So it's great. It's giving me feedback. I'm not going to rewrite the whole book, but I'll tweak what it says. Um, but I think I can go one step further. Hey, AI, tell me if anything in here is confusing or actually incorrect, factually incorrect. And there were two things in my book that it considered in 600 pages that it considered factually incorrect. And I would rather have the AI catch that than me publish it and put something out that was factually incorrect. One of them was I used a company name that I was familiar with because I have a long history in the space. Well, that company got bought 3 years ago and I didn't know it. So it told me, and the AI said, well, you're mentioning this company. Do you mean that company that was bought 3 years ago? Because if that's the case, you're technically need to update that in your book. I'm like, wow, I would, it just blew my mind. It's right. So that was a big moment of truth for me, is to use AI in that way as a quality check, as a sanity check, as a collaborator. And then from there, I really appreciated it more. It was less scary.
there's gold in what you just said. So I just want to footnote this, that people notice the confusion and struggle and fear, levels of fear. In fact, maybe we can map out the levels of fear. You know, like they have the levels of facing death. Maybe we
Yeah.
can come up. If you don't have it, let's come up with the levels, because there really are. There's a rejection and so forth. But what you showed there is, if people aren't willing to go through that uncomfortableness, I say they're dangerously behind, because you
Yeah.
need to know I'm in that journey. It's uncomfortable. That doesn't mean I shouldn't take a break, go for running, or do some little stupid game that gives me a breather, a meditation, because we can't be in that state all the time. But you just mapped out the experience. If people listening to this aren't putting themselves in that level of discomfort, I say their career is in major danger. So that's why it's so important you shared that human condition of it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I totally agree. And I would say, look, reach out to Martin and I, because the journey I went through to understand what I just shared was incredibly painful over many years. And it was very emotional. I mean, it was, I'm not an emotional person, but
Yeah.
going through a journey like that, to unlearn and relearn is not comfortable. And yeah, I cried about it a couple
Yeah.
times. It was not fun. It's
Yeah,
not
and I've
fun.
known you. You're not exactly Mr. Motions. That's,
Yeah, I have one emotion, but then I
you'll get
have
one
I have
emotion a year. We'll get it. Tell your wife, is this the emotion you want to hear, honey, or not?
that's
But yeah.
right. Yeah.
So this is a great way to wrap up, is to just say this is the human condition we're all going through. Now, my blessing, as you know, is I had some learning challenges. So what I thought was a challenge, fighting and stuff, was my greatest gift, because it was always a struggle. A lot of the things that were normal were a struggle for me. And I'm now realizing that's the blessing, because it was a lot of times I had to be in the normal, in that state of confusion to function. And then once
Yeah.
I figured out I had a gestalt gift of being able to, I tell people I'm a slow learner, but when I get it, I can teach it to anyone. But it took over 30 years before I'm just a slow learner and must be not bright.
Sure. Now it's your superpower. Yeah.
Right. And it's the superpower, that gift. So I think I want to end on one note of, for professionals listening to this, what's an example of something they'd see in their business that's a red flag they probably should be talking to you? Okay. Because a lot of a lot of the issues are outside the executive's field of vision. It's in the area they don't know they don't know. So what might be a red flag? They need to get your book. And not that everyone should, but I'm serious that they might be in a terrain where it is, because you and I know an executive and professional has a much smaller window of freedom of expression than most people do, because there's so many eyes on him. People want to take his or her job, of course, whatever they are. What might be some indicators I better move here before I get caught?
Yeah, I would say that if you believe that AI is something that you want to lean into and explore, that there might be a competitive advantage, or that your business may be under competitive threat from other people who are tinkering with this, then you got to get the book, because the book I wrote is not for the people that are external running YouTube channels that play with agents and whiz bangs. The book I wrote is for the middle of the organization, where there's a top down and a bottom up pressure to make this organization competitive in the AI age. And that means you got to get your silos to work together. And that's what this book is about. So as an executive, you don't have to have all the answers. But if you say, look, let's read the book and maybe let's do a workshop or two here. Let's figure out our approach before we figure out the technology. And we've got to have a point of view here on where we're going and get the lay of the land, the strategy, before we start talking about buzzwords and all of this tech that's going to overrun us and cause analysis paralysis. And we're going to send, everybody we talk to is going to have a different answer. Let's not do that. Let's
Mhm.
build a foundation. Let's get a common language. Let's have a perspective here that blends business and technology to help our customers be successful. And that's really what the book is about. And in that, it's an empowering message, I hope, where executives don't feel like they have to have all the answers. They can say, look, I read this book. It talks about data, it talks about empathy, it talks about sustainability, it talks about AI ethics. It's covering all the breadth and scope of AI. And I think, we can learn our own approach through this. We don't have to do it like everybody else, but let's do it, right? Let's try, let's do something. And that's what the book is about.
Excellent advice, because they need to know first. And you and I have worked one-on-one with these people. An executive has lots of people who don't want them to succeed right around them, and some might be on their own chairs, on their own platforms. So knowing who to trust and not, and what's good data, is such a challenge and such an important thing, and that you're offering it so critical. We're going to have to end on two quick notes, and we'll wrap it up for people, because one is the China effect here. We've got to say something. This will be out around the time. I just want to tell you, I made a short. Did you see my little short thing on it yet or not?
I
Where
saw
I
it go
said,
by, but
yeah,
I was trying to get it to work, but I was driving.
yeah,
And
yeah. Don't do that. But I really see this as hopefully our Sputnik moment in AI. No matter what you might say, the Chinese kind of faked with this. They may have used stolen other servers. I'm a little worried, Brian, that we've gotten a little too fat and happy with our development because there's so much money poured into it. We really aren't going, are we generating new algorithms? Are we getting more efficient with this? Are we really looking? Is there another way than just more processing and more money? And I'm hoping this is a watershed wake up call for America, just like Sputnik was. I mean, we're old. That for people who don't know, what happened is the Russians sent a satellite up. It went around the planet and it made a beep noise, and we didn't know what that was. But we didn't know if it was spying or what. It was just something making a beep noise. But it really was a turning point in America. We're behind the game.
Yeah, I will say, once you know how AI works and all of the computational power and the hardware required to make AI, these platform models work, what China did was create the same type of outputs, if you will, with a lot less computing power and a lot less data. So you need less data, less storage to do the same thing. So that's why the stock crash and all that. With Nvidia, because Nvidia makes hardware, they make the chips that do the algorithms. AI is very math heavy. It's very super math heavy. Every single word you type is going through millions of permutations, every word. So there's just a lot of bits and bytes and number crunching. So what the Chinese did was, build a model, a platform model. Again, there's 10, or now there's 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ish. That there's a platform model that's lighter, faster, and still the same quality. Where we've spent trillions, it's spent millions, and oh, by the way, it's lighter, easier, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a quote unquote better model. The issue that I have is that China has already proven that it is trying to attack us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's been in our hardware. China
Mm-hmm.
has. When I say China, I mean public companies and private companies. But people don't realize that a private and public company in China is like saying, you know what? Facebook and Meta is a private company. They would never do it. Okay, well, what if Facebook and Meta was owned by the CIA? Would you trust it? Oh
Yes.
no, I wouldn't. If the government and the CIA was looking at everything I was doing on Facebook, and if the CIA was looking at everything I did with Google, I would not trust it. Well, that's what China does,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
the idea that, oh, it's fenced off. No, if you look at the user agreement, your data is in China. It is sitting on servers, because you have to know how AI works. It's sitting on servers in China being crunched on, and who's to say they're not making a copy? So outside of the technical whiz bangs of, okay, less compute, less storage, you have to realize that they have been trying to disrupt us and, declare war on us, and we're in a so the Sputnik moment may be a cyber attack moment as well, because now you have the TikTok version of all of our kids now,
Mhm.
and now if everybody starts using this model, they're going to have all the adults, right? So what can you do with that information about society? And you can start undermining, and there's a lot of things you can do once you understand how a whole society thinks and how they behave, and oh, by the way, who you are. So outside of the technical wizardry of doing it all, which is probably amazing, I would say, to me, you got to stay away from it, because they've already been in our hardware with Huawei. They've already been in TikTok, which, the CIA is like, if you have that on your phone, get it off your phone.
Mhm.
And now they're doing these platform models, and you know what? They hate us, and they've declared war on us, and they're an enemy.
Mhm.
So why would we do that? And okay, we can all pretend that they're altruistic and they just love the world and they're doing a great service for humanity. But you know what? They haven't been doing that. And
Mm-mm.
by the way, they hate us and they try to kill us. So
Mhm.
I think if your company decides that you want to ship all your data and all of your, and you want to use them, fine. But I would say, as a person who used to have, a top secret clearance and worked in the
Mhm.
military, that's probably a bad idea. Uh,
Mhm.
so I would say that be careful what you do with it, and make sure that you understand what's happening. The final thing I'll say is, if they truly did what they said, which apparently they did because people are
Mhm.
using it,
Mhm.
um, I actually think it accelerates the internal build of small language models and large language models per company. So I see a massive build out of LLMs by company, as
Mhm.
opposed to just plugging into ChatGPT. If you can truly do what they did, there's no reason why your company cannot have its own complete infrastructure and LLM platform model inside your firewall, protected. There really, that day is coming. Then, and that's the harbinger that I think DeepSeek brings, is the ability to do this cheaper, same quality, less hardware, less compute. We can then say that you got to definitely get my book, because that's what my book is all about, is enterprise AI and bringing it inside the firewall, inside the company, inside your private cloud. That's how companies will start competing, and they'll stop eventually plugging into these open AI models, Grok, Anthropic, because they have it internally. And I think that could be the Sputnik moment,
Yeah.
is the ability to do that.
Yeah, and I'm still gonna put in, I think the companies that are doing it may not be as efficient or demanding as much creativity as they can, and I'm hoping you'll get them to do more, so that's my vote on it.
Yeah.
Very last topic, because it's important, is one of mine interest, is in working with Emery, my stepson, who really understands down to the granular occurs. He's really taught me how important accessibility of the open source is for small businesses to stay in, ingenuity, creativity, because I've learned as my 7 years in IBM, large companies are not good for creativity and ingenuity. They're good at take something, make it more profitable and more profitable and more profitable, but they generally are not good. And we've got to keep these small businesses. So there has to be some type of relationship with protecting the public, but also having open source and small businesses active. And I'd love to hear your view. I don't feel I have all the answers to that, but I know we don't want to fully shut down, because I heard some pretty strong stuff from the last administration. They wanted to shut it all down and control it. Now, I'm an independent, so I'm not trying to be political here, but that scared the Kijiji. Someone said, I got out of that meeting and I voted for the other guy. We've got to embrace small micro entrepreneurs, and we have to have enough open source. So what's your view on that? Any ideas on that balance?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I will say that if you look at the intersection of your work as a small business owner, whatever that is,
Mhm.
and that analogy of plugging into a platform model and using the horsepower from Grok or
Mhm.
Anthropic or, OpenAI, it's going to be in places where open source is starting to move towards. So by that I mean, you can go online and build out uh, bots that interact with these models, these platform models, and help you run your business. And the analogy I would use there is, if you're a small business owner and you've ever built a website that's point and click, or a WordPress site that's point and click and drag, and has all these features, there are companies that are popping up that let you tap into AI and the open source that exists, so that you can bring it into your processes for marketing, for customer service, for research, things like that. And yeah, you can drag and drop. You can connect things together. And you may have heard of companies like Zapier or Make that do automation of process. Well, now those types of user interfaces are starting to pop up around, maybe even building your own agent that takes a form from your site and does stuff with it, and then sends something back, kind of an input output feel. And so a lot of these are open source platforms that are popping up that use open source. You can download the model.
Mm-hmm.
You can download the orchestration tool to hand off between the bots. You could also pay a small fee and go in and build your own really operating system
Mm-hmm.
that taps into AI. And I think that's where things are going to start going, is to help those people that want to integrate maybe their HubSpot with their website to do things with their customers, and have it AI help with that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not just passing static fields, but you're generating an output for customers, things like that. And so that's starting to pop up. And you can actually build and deploy your own large language model on your laptop now, and that's all open source and freely available. Then you have to build a user interface and code on top of it, but you could technically deploy these things on your laptop. So it really depends on understanding your business, and then asking the fundamental question is, what can we automate? Remember, this idea of automation is really underpinning this. And then, what can we generate? So automate and generate. When you automate things, you understand what you can generate from it. And that's the generative part. The generate part is your large language models. So if you just want to randomly generate a bunch of stuff, that most small businesses don't want to do that. They're very specific on what they want to automate. Then it becomes a question of being curious about, okay, well, what can I generate from this? And
And
starting
and
small.
then at the higher level, your views on the importance of government associations having regulations to protect the public, but not regulating too much to
Yeah.
stifle creativity in small business. What's
Yeah.
your takes on that?
Yeah, I believe that we should not have over regulation on this. That we are in a renaissance period. That we will create new jobs. That we as a company and a country and a society can have massive benefits. That AI will eventually cure cancer and things like that. But in that view, we should not restrict it like the Europeans are and other countries are. And in that, though, it really comes down to understanding the legal aspects of this, right? Like, when you generate something, who really owns it? So I think we should be paying more attention to the laws around this
Mhm.
before we start restricting it. And most of our intellectual property laws are way outdated. I mean, that's the thing that we should be focusing on, is making sure the legal system catches up to where we are. And
Mhm.
and then from there, seeing where the regulation should happen. But if we're just running around regulating things and governmentizing that without the legal system behind it to help us clarify who owns what is safety, what is ethical and moral from a company perspective, what can you get sued for, in other words,
Mhm.
then that's really where we should be spending our time, in
Yeah,
my view.
I think Europe is going to be pushing more people wanting to be in America right now,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
think
they're
they've
they're they're kind
already
of
overregulated. And I don't think it's an easy answer. We have to do some real thinking. But if I think it's, as you and I living in America, I think it's to our benefit unless our government then starts overregulating and stop encourage. Remember, the birth of great ideas, most of them are still coming from micro businesses and from
yeah.
individuals in a basement that downloaded the open source and found a new algorithm. We should not forget that that is one of the greatest assets we have in this country.
That's right. A lot of creativity there.
Well, this has been delightful. Hold up that beautiful book again. Tell them how they can reach you. I'll put links below, and I'm excited
Yeah.
for people to join us. I knew we'd have a great time and a great show. Highly recommend it. I've worked with this guy before. Looking forward to us future working together because I think there are
Yeah.
complements and where our passions and certainly ethical alignment with you and I, because we really do want to honor the gift of the human and help them have as a fulfilling life as possible. Even in the sales, we talked about the ethics of a salesman. What does real win-win ethics mean in sales, and how do we help them win with that? So I think this is something we're aligned on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate the time. You can check out the book at aileadbook.com. I do plan on having some events in Raleigh, so if you have local listeners, I'd love to meet them in person. And then yeah, we'll see where this all goes. It became an Amazon bestseller in 10 days, and then it won 4 international book awards in 10 days. So the first 10 days were pretty phenomenal, and I was not expecting that. So I hope people are finding value in it. It appears that they are, and I'm gonna buckle in here and see where this ride takes us. And I appreciate you, Martin, you being part of that journey and giving me some airtime here, and I appreciate your listeners tuning in for this long.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, we'll put links below. Excited and love to hear people's comments in as well. So have a fantastic day.